Alright, everybody, welcome to another week of Game Wisdom Live for May 5th, 2019. I am Josh Blazer, and we got another great cast for you this week discussing game industry and design topics. Joining me is my co host, video game producer, Robert Leach.
Hello, how's it going?
I am doing alright, how about you?
Not too bad. A little tired for some reason today, but doing all right
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah, me too. The weather here has just been dreadful. My allergies have been going off this entire week.
Oh no.
Yeah, but having like that sinus pressure on my forehead, which is kind of annoying when you're trying to do discussions and videos and such.
Yeah, not too good for talking a lot.
hmm And we've been doing a lot of talking here. I think we had a live cast earlier. Oh, for Friday. My voice seems to be going out too. And I'm trying to get George Fan of Plants vs Zombies fame on for a stream maybe next week.
Oh wow, that sounds good.
hmm
That game is too old now. It's too old now.
Yeah. But as always, it's been a very interesting week. Of course, we started the month over again, which means the donations for the Patreon or the Super Chat have gone back down. So we did get some donation. I'm about halfway to my first goal so far, so there's still plenty of time. Thank you for everyone who has been supporting. We did officially settle on the name for book number 2, and that's going to be going to production real soon. Give me one
Can you give
second.
spoilers? What's the name?
1 second. I forgot to pop out the chat. I was wondering why I couldn't see what everyone was saying. Alright, let me grab it from the email. That way I can give you the exact title here. Alright, it is going to be a game design deep dive, and then there'll be a different subtitle for each topic. So the first one will be platformers.
Very good.
Yep, so I should be hearing hopefully either this week or next how long it's going to be in production for. And I'm hoping beyond hope that they'll get back to me regarding book number 3 because I would like to start writing it, but it makes no sense to sit down until we actually have a contract drawn out and all that.
I mean, you could always sketch one out. You never know. Move it to another publisher if yours isn't interested for some reason.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's see. So the Josh boxes have been coming along. I've gotten 3 of the 5. They're almost done. I still have to make 2 more after that. I then want to still try and offer. I'm just thinking about the best place to kind of advertise it. Maybe I'll make like another special video and have that in like the in-betweens in terms of people want like a little box and again picking like 10 podcasts, of my choice or whatever.
Yeah. Are you allowed to, or are you going to be able to kind of show them off, or have you already done that? The in progress boxes?
I have 2 videos I've recorded. I'm going to have to, edit them and try and make them somewhat presentable because I don't think people just want to sit and watch an hour of me just going like this, like painting with my head down for an hour, like no dialogue.
That's Twitch though. That's like 90% of Twitch right there.
There we go. I'll make that a new Twitch show. I'll do the stuff here, Game Wisdom, and then we'll do painting over on Twitch.
All right, let's do it. Box painting.
There we go.
4-hour stream.
Yeah, that may actually get me more people. You never know. But I guess for you, Rob, how is everything at 2K?
Oh, not too bad. Still working on the league, going pretty well. Got a tournament coming up next week in Vegas, and that's where I'll be
Oh, yeah.
Thursday through the weekend.
Nice. Good luck with that.
It's news. Of course, you don't watch that, but it's there. It's there for you if you want to watch people just paint or play
They're
piano
singing
or
now.
whatever. Yeah, singing.
But trying to think if there's anything else going on game wisdom wise. I'm going to be preparing some presentations for June and July soon. I'm going to be giving like a talk about VR. So I've been holding off redesigning it because I know with VR, like every month they throw out some new technology. So I figure if I started now, my discussion will be obsolete by July.
Well, you're also gonna have to pick up some hefty VR hardware.
hmm
Pre-order the Valve stuff.
I need to get in one of those that was the Omni treadmill. I should just bring that in and show people what that's like. Which I have a friend who does all that. He has all the VR stuff, and he can loan me a few.
Yeah, there you go.
But speaking about my friend, we're almost done with a redesign on Game Wisdom as well. So the site's going to be getting an update probably in the next few weeks.
Very cool.
Be looking all fancier and being a lot more mobile friendly as well.
Get that HTML5 going.
Yeah. But I think with that, let's kind of talk about some of the news that's going on in the games we've been playing. So before the stream, Rob and I were scouring Gamasutra for anything like newsworthy to discuss, and there really wasn't nothing unless you want to talk about drama, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. The whole
games industry is never short on drama.
No, it's not. Borderlands 3 had a lot of ups and downs this week. Did you watch any of the preview of it, Rob?
No, I did not. I'm, as many know that have watched this before. My AAA games knowledge is very, very limited, and my interest in it is equally limited, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
News is right, Josh. We have to get our own drama going.
Mm-hmm. I know we'll release a rumor that we're having a off-air fight. Rob and Josh secretly hate each other. We put on a face for the camera.
They seem so easygoing on camera. I don't know.
They just hate each other. The second the camera goes off,
just slam the laptop shut.
Yeah.
Pull the plug on the computer. I'm out of here.
Yeah. The favorite part, though, was I tuned into the Borderlands 3 stream literally the second they found a game-breaking bug live. Like, I turn it on, and the game, automatically die in the game. So I was saying, see, I can break games just by watching them. I don't even need to play the games anymore.
Yeah, the infamous Game Wisdom bug.
Mm-hmm. I just show up and games break. That will be... There you go, boy. Shark.
That would be a terrible fight.
Yeah. Who's gonna gamble on that? Well, you're going to Vegas. You could ask them there. What are the odds?
Yeah, I think that would be a conflict of interest, though.
Somebody can throw the fight.
Yeah, I just bet it all on you, and then you land a punch, and I'm just out. Although I gotta say, my fighting skills would probably make that happen regardless.
Speaking about fighting, did you do, or have you seen any more with Mortal Kombat 11?
No, not really since we last spoke, I don't think. No.
Yeah. They're trying to, I guess, soften the blow, the microtransactions, and they're promising, I guess, more updates. And I'm pretty sure people have data mined the hell out of the game, and they've already tried to confirm where they leaked DLC characters too.
Yeah, I don't know how you have DLC characters that are already shipped in the game, because that would be easy to just grab. I mean, not easy for me, but for someone who knows what they're doing, if there's something in the game, you can get hold of it. So
I think what I heard is that they data mined they recorded the vocals or the intros for the various people, so they can hear so and so mentioned this character, so then they must be an upcoming DLC character.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never really had to deal with that in production, that level of protection in terms of DLC and whatnot. At least I know it happens in the game that I work on occasionally, but I work on the league side, and I don't have to worry about that too much.
Yeah, and I think that is true. 30-year gamer, it's like $6,000 of DLC in the game right now. And I think we talked about that one last week, and again, how very weird it was. And let's see.
Yeah, I think someone came up with a different number as well, but I can't verify either one.
Let's see. Dead or Alive 6 has about $384 of DLC right now, but that's just for Season Pass 1. Oh, wait a minute.
That's a crazy series. I don't know how it's... I mean, Mortal Kombat being up to 11, that's its own kind of confusion, but Dead or Alive being up to 6 is also a little much.
I just love how the season pass for Dead or Alive 6, it doesn't cover an entire year, it only covers March to June. And then they're going
That's
to have
weird.
another season pass. It's not really a season then. Oh wait, I
Uh,
guess technically it is. They're talking about,
it's a literal season.
yeah,
Yeah, spring.
the spring season DLC.
Yeah.
Mm. Now I guess kind of as a continuation from last week's chat then. I guess what do you think about games that have like that they're designed around that very long term amount of DLC? You know, where it's not just we're going to be releasing a few things here and there. It's like we're going to be releasing DLC for like the next 8 to 12 months or more.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I honestly buy into a lot of games that have that length of DLC. Um, Planet Coaster being the one that is most recent for me, and I bought their latest DLC about a week and a half ago. So, I mean, I'm very much on board with long-term DLC for a. It does make me feel like the game I really like to play is being supported,
Mm-hmm.
is being considered all the time. And I know Frontier, for example, has had other projects going on in the meantime, being Jurassic Park and Planet Zoo, which is now. Did it release already? Is it
Is
coming
there?
soon?
Wait, Planet Zoo?
Yeah, Planet
Really?
Zoo. Let's get the information on that. It's supposed to be great. It includes a bunch of new tech. It's
Oh.
still coming soon, but it looks identical to Planet Coaster, except it has a lot more features. There's some new tech involved, and it focuses around, of course, zoos. I know a lot of people might do complain about that it's not actually a DLC for Planet Coaster. If you go back to Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, which Frontier also did, there was a live animals DLC for it. And well, back in those days, it was go out in the store and buy it. It was not DLC. It was just an add-on or a expansion. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's not one I'm going to buy. It's not my cup of tea necessarily. So, but it is kind of fascinating, and I'm imagining once they get to like a Planet Coaster 2 or something like that, they'll be merging some of that tech.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll have to get a new computer because there's no way it can handle a Planet Coaster 2, assuming there's significant updates.
We were joking. I think this computer I'm on now may actually be able to handle Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah,
And
go for it. Not just Final Fantasy 15, but the more recent update from that's on Steam. Right, more recent being last year, but still.
which one is that? The
Well, let me just find it. I forget what it's called. Final Fantasy 15 Windows Edition, maybe. Let's check that out
let's see.
because it has all the great like tech demo graphics and whatnot.
I think I could actually run this. Oh my goodness.
There you go, 60-hour stream.
Oh god.
Play
Yeah.
it through until you beat it,
Or die trying.
or die trying.
There we go. I went from being behind the pack to now I have all the bells and whistles, right?
Yeah, there you go. And but you still need the VR.
Oh god.
So reserve your Valve Index today, as they keep telling me.
Oh, here it is. Oh no. Wait, so this is not. So this is Valve's own VR then, right?
Yeah, correct.
Oh my. Feels like they're a few years late for that.
Yeah, but they were a few years late to the console market, and they decided to go for it anyway. But
Mm-hmm.
if their VR is to be similar to the console, then maybe investing isn't a good idea.
Oh, good. Just in time for when I do my presentation on VR, I can put that in. And by the
There you
time
go.
I put that in, it will already be discontinued. That will be my luck there. Let's see. So I guess have you had a chance to play anything new this week?
Well, again, Parkitect is what I've been focused on, but my wife and I busted out the Wii, as you can kind of see in the background. That's all the accessories. We have two of those consoles. She and I both owned our own before, years ago. one of them's broken, one of them's working, one of the controllers is broken, but three others are working. So, we're doing all right there, busting out Wii Sports, and I have a couple other games here that I never actually played. The Heavenly Guardian. I have my box of games here handily enough, not on purpose though. NBA Jam and Tron. There's an assortment of games that I think I got as gifts.
Let's see. We played some Frostpunk on the stream. I finally had a chance to sit down and play it.
Oh,
I
how is it?
excuse me. I liked it, but I don't think it scratches that city building itch. It feels more like a survival game. And speaking of survival, my voice seems to be dying. There you go. But yeah, like it didn't feel like as much of a city builder as I was hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're playing set scenarios, so if you know what to expect, it kind of removes a lot of the challenge there. But it's still a challenging game. Don't get me wrong. Let's.
Is it? Would you basically describe it as you have a city builder, and that's basically one campaign that you're focused on?
Yeah, it's pretty much all scenario based. Now there is an endless mode, but I don't know what that does. Let's see. There was another game that came out that some of my friends have been talking about. Dawn of Man. Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of it. I haven't done anything with it. Maybe I've seen a preview, but I don't know. It's doubtful.
It's
Dawn of Man. Here it is.
looks like a city builder, but prehistoric.
Oh, so like the first part of Civ or something.
Yeah. Seems to be having mixed reviews though, but I wonder what they'll do with it. Did you see the game Rise of Industry? It's kind of like a super, even more macro-oriented or logistics take on Anno.
And that is definitely one that I have seen the previews for a couple times. Oh, it looks like they're going to have a stream in 2 minutes.
Oh.
But I have not looked into it much. I should put it on my wish list here.
We played the demo of it on stream, and I had like no idea what I was doing. Like after that demo.
Yeah, that's how it goes. I was talking with someone about this the other day, and city builders and this kind of thing have very complex algorithms going on in the background that are very difficult to figure out sometimes. So, yeah, you'll be like, I just lost, and I don't know why, and I just lost again, I don't know. Eventually, you'll figure it out, or you'll just read someone's,
or you just watch a Let's Play. Let's see, what else? I've been playing a Dishonored 2, like off stream, like during my downtime, and I'm not really enjoying it as much as the first one. Did you play either one?
No, I have not. I might have one sitting around somewhere. Let me check.
It's very possible. I bought number 2 at some point in the past, and I don't remember actually buying it.
I know how that is.
Mm-hmm.
Let us check the library.
Yeah, the second one goes for a lot bigger areas. The level design's been improved, but there's a greater focus on enemies. And if you're trying to play the game carefully, like the enemies are just nasty in this one. They have characters who can teleport around a lot more. Also, I'm in a coven of witches, and they all of a sudden just like teleport, surround me, and then shoot me with fireballs. It's like you can't really do too much stealth at that point.
No. You gotta run around like a crazy person.
Mm-hmm. At some point, though, like it's from Arcane, who did Prey. I really want to pick up that Moon Crash DLC because I've heard a lot of people say that's really good.
Prey, I still haven't gotten in. I don't know. I mean, survival games are tough for me. That is a survival game, correct?
It's more like an immersive sim.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, I'm thinking of something else then.
And yeah, like the DLC for it adds like a roguelike mode to it, which sounds very crazy and interesting all at once.
Interesting.
The other like kind of surprise game we played on stream was Octogeddon. That's the second game by George Fan, and it was actually one of our favorite games this week that we played, which is very funny. It's like, why play these very expensive, next gen games? We can play a game about an octopus rolling around beating up cities.
Well, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look at the trailer now.
I don't know how well Octagon did, unfortunately. Came out last February.
Yeah, there's not enough reviews to make me think it succeeded at all.
Mm-hmm. Which is a shame because I think it really deserved it.
Well, it's a tough market,
Mm-hmm.
the hardcore casual, if
Yeah.
that's a term to bring up, because really you have to get that balance of interesting hardcore gamers and not like throwing away the casual market, because you're never going to get enough of either one to
Mm-hmm.
individually make it a success. So if you can't appeal to both simultaneously, you're just going to fail.
Yep. And like Plants vs Zombies kind of worked in that middle ground perfectly.
Yeah.
But as we were talking about, it's like very weird with Octogeddon that it has a lot more replayability to it, but there's not as much content. While Plants vs Zombies really wasn't that replayable, but it hit you with so much stuff you can do in the game.
Yeah. You can. There was the. I completed everything in Plants vs Zombies except for one thing, and that was I think it was fully growing the tree.
Oh yeah,
Um,
me neither.
that I got really far, really probably a little over halfway done with it, but it's just so much grinding that I just gave up.
Mm-hmm. Yep. With Octogeddon, I started playing on hard mode, which adds in like more enemies and things to deal with, but it's still just kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
All right. But I think we'll get to our first topic, and we haven't really thought what our second topic will be this week. So if anyone has any suggestions, let us know in the comments below. But this is a continuation from last week where we were talking about kind of what was our previous topic that we talked about, Rob? Do you remember?
Hmm. I don't. Oh, I don't.
Mm-mm.
Chat history needs to go up further to previous weeks.
Yeah. But we somehow began to talk about education and schools when it comes to the game industry or game design. And were we talking about YouTubers again, or was it something else?
I mean, we seem to touch on the YouTubers thing quite frequently.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Let me just bring up your channel. If chat doesn't get there first, let me just check it out.
Yeah, I left it up public, so it should be available.
Videos. Well, I should be able to see it anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Playlists.
Game Wisdom Live for
Chat.
what was it? 428. It's a second to last topic about online courses, game design, whether that stuff is important or can it actually help you when it comes to making a game.
Hmm. Um, oh,
Let's see. I could try watching myself.
well, microtransactions. Oh, problems trying to teach game design. We did touch on that.
Oh, okay. And then that led into talking about game design schools, courses, along those lines. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Give me 1 second. I'm going to make another tweet, let people know.
Hey, Yanshavik.
Using my fast typing skills.
Yeah. Sadly, I wish I know. Gosh, who was on here that usually talks about this specifically? Who knows this aspect of the education system?
Hmm.
Because I know that my only experience with this is from an outsider's perspective. Having in when I was in college, like Full Sail was just getting started, and
Yeah.
it had my interest very early, but it was just too expensive to
Oh
even
yeah.
warrant leaving my university that I was already at, or actually just going there on its own, let alone leaving the university I was already at to go there. Because there's very little you can do to just to get in or get a scholarship or whatnot.
Yeah.
But as it's a trade school and it was a 2 year school at that point in time, um, but I managed to get into games anyway, and here I am. But
Yeah.
um, it
Yeah.
is very expensive, and for a trade school, I don't know how they guarantee you getting a solid job. I know for a good period of time, I feel like you had that window where there were just enough uh, trade schools that did games that you could easily, quote, easily get into the games industry, having some experience and having some training from people who were actually there. Um,
Hmm.
but I don't know. I feel like that window is closing because people are still hiring experienced programmers and artists and game and designers and
Yeah.
audio people, and it just makes it harder because that flood has happened, and people who are young in the industry, maybe 5 years or less, got just kind of made that window.
Yeah.
Now there are plenty of employment opportunities for certain levels of game companies. Way Forward, one I worked for years and years ago, they specifically took talent out of a local art institute. It makes it inexpensive, and you get relatively talented people um, to be able to build from. Now, those people might wind up going somewhere else over time. I mean, your options are limited when you leave school, but they expand quite rapidly once you get some titles under your belt. Um, so I don't know how much churn there is at a company that hires straight out of those colleges, but I can't imagine it's easy, especially given the cost of going there.
Yeah. And as Rob said, like when I was in college back in the early thousands, it was basically full. No, it was a DigiPen, Full Sail, and that was it. Like it was basically those two colleges if you wanted to get a degree in game design.
Hmm.
But there's several, I think, big issues there. The first one, as you said, it's very expensive. Like it was several times more money to go to something like DigiPen than it would have been to go to like one of the colleges around here. So that will put me in even more debt than I am in right now with those damn student loans.
Hmm.
And then the other issue, though, and this one we were kind of talking about, or like kind of leading around last week, is does that really help you when it comes to game design or building a video game? Because as we've said, game design is both a combination of soft and hard skills. You can teach someone a program, you can teach someone how to draw or make music or edit videos. But can you teach someone how to make an effective gameplay loop? Can you teach them what is good UI design? Like, or even like management skills. That's another big point.
Well, I feel like management skills is one of those
Yeah.
that's tough,
Yeah.
regardless of industry. But this is what I remember from last week that we went over was the consistency of game design or production processes from company to company, and they're so different that training someone to do it a specific way is just going to cause them to have to learn it from scratch somewhere
Yeah.
else. Now, if you're a student who gets hired as a lead at a company, well, then you can kind of define the role. But if you're going in as a ground level person, you're just going to have to learn someone else's process.
Yeah. And
And so you can throw away a lot of that stuff that you just learned that you spent so much money on. That said, it might be worth it just to be able to get a decent job.
yeah.
But the question is, can you get one? I know plenty of students right now are forced to try and make their own games and become indie companies right off the bat because getting a job
Oh yeah.
that pays enough is just not good. But having a game coming out of college is more likely.
Yeah. And like another point though is that game design is also multifaceted. Like as we've said, there's a big difference if you want to design a platformer versus a battle royale game versus a roguelike game. So what kind of degree would you be able to get? Like, do you say, I have a degree in game design with a minor in first person shooting? Like, it doesn't really work like that. And as Janšvik just said, shouldn't you be studying general computer science? And yeah, that was kind of what I did. But when I was in college, when I got my bachelor's in, I think it was computer information systems, it was kind of like their fancy computer science, there was no game design whatsoever. Like, there was zero video games. I've said this before. Like, when I was in college, they were going to phase out their computer programming. Like, they said, this isn't going to pay anyone. We're going to get rid of it. And then the year later, they started a game design course. But yeah, and as a 30-year gamer said, like, it is only a small part because, like we said, there's so much that goes into game development. As you said, Rob, the studio culture is another big point about that. Like you said about someone being like hired, out of college as a lead, but does that happen often, or is that more of a rare occurrence?
That's a rare occurrence.
Yeah.
Now, per Janševik's statement, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. That's what I've been trying to say the whole time. But anyway, getting a computer science degree, certainly being a programmer and getting a degree in programming gives you way more options than getting one in game design or specific, I guess specifically to game design or game production, because those are very niche things to learn, and they're not that applicable from company to company. But knowing programming, especially being good at it and being able to prove it, you can get hired in a lot of different industries. So you're not shoehorned into one
And
from the get go.
yeah, and that's another really big point too, as you said, Rob. Like, when it comes to like a computer science degree or like a general programming, you can apply that to other industries. I know many programmers and many people in the game industry have part-time or full-time jobs doing programming, doing other work with the stuff that they learn from college. But if you just get a degree in game design, that may not get you that foot in the door in other places. It's like if you go to a bank or to some major company and say, "Oh, I have a degree in game design," but this is a job for, I don't know, managing databases. Would they be willing to look at you the same way as if you say, "Oh, I have my degree in computer science," or "Here's my business degree"?
Correct, and certainly also the art, as I mentioned, that applies to a variety of different topics. Now, game programming is very different from other industry programming, but there's been crossover that I've known a lot of programmers in the games industry who came from outside of games,
Yes.
and I don't know how many vice versa because I don't work outside of that. But being a good programmer can translate to a lot of different career paths. Being a great artist can translate to a lot of different career paths. But you have to, generally speaking, you have to be pretty top notch to get into the games industry, especially if you want to be have career growth.
Or you go
or
the
be in
indie route.
AAA games. AAA games are gonna crush you if you don't know programming very, very well.
Yep. And like as you said, that's one of the reasons why many people right out of college go into the independent market. Because you are your own boss at that point. You don't need to worry about somebody telling you what you can and can't do. And as you know, everyone in college knows everything, right?
Yep.
You take one semester of psychology and you know how everything works in the human brain. But like we were saying, getting back to our main question, and as I'll get to Shark's point too here, does game design courses really help or prepare somebody for making a video game? And like as Shark's saying, his two big issues are they don't actually teach you, like that's what he feels, like in some of them, and the market is already insanely flooded. And that's what you were saying earlier too, Rob, that again, like when we do our weird games segment, like the next 20 or so minutes, we're going to probably find 30 to 50 games coming out in the next 4 or 5 days. And it's one of those things where learning about making a video game is not the same as making one, not just from a design standpoint, but again, as we said, from a marketing standpoint, from a PR standpoint, even from a project management. And it does raise that question that how many people who go through the whole process, they attend, a 4-year college, learn about game design, how many of them can then just say, okay, I'm going to spend the next 2 years of my life and make a really great video game. Like one of my frequent guests, Trayvon, who's from Ninja 5, he did just that. Like the second he got out of college, he decided to start his own video game company. He's making that game Bullet Mayan Warfare. And he's been working on that now for, I want to say, at least 4, maybe 5 years. And again, like, how much do these schools prepare somebody for what it means to make a video game? Or be a game developer, I should say.
Yeah, and by the way, I just want to comment that chat's making a lot of great points. You guys are bringing up an awful lot of things that should, if we were given a lecture on this, every single one of these should be hit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very difficult because you just spent a ton of money getting that game design degree, because getting a degree in game design is not going to be cheap no matter where you go. Although there's a lot more schools offering classes in that. Would even more. And to Yanchevic's point, game designers are a minority in any game company. There is programmers are the vast majority. Artists are also second on that list. Producers, game designers, because and there's also that idea of what is a game designer.
Oh, yes.
Most people think, I'm the one who, as the game designer, one who kind of fleshes everything out from the get-go. Like, I make everything. When that in a AAA setting is definitely not the case, and in an indie setting, you're collaborative at best. It's getting a pure game design job right off the bat is going to be very difficult. I got in the old school traditional way, which was QA, even after I had a 4-year degree from a university. I had to start from the ground. And yes, you do learn everything once you get a job, but it's getting that job. It's getting that foot in the door that is almost impossible. And once you spend all that money in a 4-year degree, most people, like the vast majority of people, don't have the freedom to spend another couple of years making a game. You have to make money.
Oh, yes.
And if you can get a career going, then you might be able to make enough money to have some time and do some stuff on the side, but chances are you're going to be struggling right off the bat, paying back loans and still covering rent and all that. It's it itself is a depressing indie game like Cart Life. But Mojo, good point. I thought I was
again. It's the on-air drama leaking in, as we were saying earlier.
Trying to start fights.
There you go. But several really good points there. First, from you, Rob, about there are a lot more schools. Like, as you may know, I've been trying to email colleges about my books, doing presentations, things like that, and there are certainly a lot more now than there were a decade ago. And more colleges are offering maybe not game design degrees, sorry about that, but they are having courses, minors. Many of them are having undergraduate programs. That's great. But as you said, and as I think Shark was also alluding to, what is the quality of these programs? And that, that's a topic we do not have any first-hand knowledge on. Because again, everybody, and this is another big point, everybody has their own experience with game design. Again, like you and I, we know that for sure, dealing with independent developers for so many years. Everybody has their own path to game development. Everyone's done things their own way and differently. So you can't really apply that, there is no, as we said, there's no one size fits all when it comes to building a video game. So how exactly do you, teach someone all that? And then the other point, like as what Chris is saying, like schools can't teach you passion and discipline. Yep. Like we said, you can learn a lot of the hard skills when it comes to video games, but how does that teach you what makes a game popular? Again, there's a lot of philosophy and a lot of, theory crafting when it comes to game design. And that's what we were talking about last week when it comes to studying it. And I have another point there, but I've been talking for the last few minutes, so I'll throw over to you, Rob, first.
I just want to mention about the level of quality of teachers. I I can't really speak to it, but I do think that the quality is going to be pretty high. I feel like no matter who your teacher is going to be, they're going to have insight, they're going to have knowledge, and you're going to be able to actually pull from them. Chances are they're going to be experienced. I have a tough time thinking that an art institute that, generally speaking, art institutes are very expensive. They're not going to be able to get by grabbing students if they can't brag about who their professors are. So chances are you're going to have someone with at least knowledge, whether or not they're good at teaching. Now, that's still like, if they're a platform specific person, then yeah, you're not going to be able to get into most AAA companies if they unless it's like 3D platformer with high end graphics. If you make your like class project or your school project or your thesis or whatever, and it just happens to be a game that you really liked, but isn't a popular genre, it's going to be tough to get a job. Like it's really, really hard. I can't underline enough how hard it is to get a job in the industry, let alone one that might require additional experience. We did touch on this last week, that if you've gone to a gaming school and if you have a job that allows you to hire, you're probably going to have a bent towards hiring people who come out of a game school. So you will have connections probably, but again, there aren't many positions. Just because you can hire people doesn't mean there are positions available to hire for. So,
Yep.
oh, news. Yeah, that's something that's disappointing to hear, because yeah, you don't want to be taught by other students.
No.
It seems like a bad idea.
Yeah. And the other point I wanted to say is that when it comes to the actual game design side of things, like we were saying last week, that it's still, I think, very much considered like this. I'm not sure how I want to put this. Like, it's a topic that a lot of people don't, I think, really understand or comprehend what it means. Like we've said, you can teach programming, you can teach how to draw, how to edit audio, but is game design by itself, I don't think a lot of people consider that yet still worthy of being studying. I mean, like we've said, with the fact that it's so hard for like me to talk to people about this, like a lot of people don't think that game design is important enough, I think, to be its own thing. And this is what we were talking about earlier, that if you get a degree, you go to a college and get a 4-year degree in game design that also has programming and art, and then let's say you can't find a job right away, so you decide to go to a bank, tech support, whatever kind of company, and they take one look at your resume and it says, you have a game design course or a game design degree. Why should I even look at you? And it is a very tough and it's a very scary thing for, I think, a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's another issue about game design, is that certainly people come in and think auteur. Just like when you think of a movie director, you think they control everything. They have all the details, everything, and certainly that can be the case. But for a game designer, most of the game designers I've run across, it's more about systems design than it is about writing the game. It's about flowcharts, and it's about explaining to the programmers what you want. And in order to explain something to a programmer, to be specific, you really have to have the numbers down. You really have to have the processes down. Otherwise, a programmer can only interpret. If it's loose to interpret, they're going to program it the way they think it needs to be programmed. And if section A of your game has to be programmed by one person and section B is programmed by another person, you have to make sure that there's some communication and some consistency and some roadmap for them to follow. So it's really not as exciting as all that. It's a lot of paperwork, and for what you say, the paperwork is inconsistent from company to company and person to person. So, like you say, there's no consistency in terms of teaching it. So, or in terms of applying it. Teaching it can certainly allow you to learn how to make a game. Like, there's no reason you can't leave a game design school not knowing how to make a game. But being hired somewhere else is a whole other ball of wax.
And like we said, even if you do learn how to make a game, can you make a good game? Again, we've played many games here on the channel. I'm going to get to Shark's Point. That was another really good one in a second. But we've played many games here on the channel that, again, like, again, I'm trying to be diplomatic. I don't want to just be yelling and ranting about games being bad, but there are a lot of games here that I would not spend 1 cent on. Let me just put it like that. Like, it's just not a game that I would consider to be marketable. But I still understand that people put their heart and soul in these games, so I'm trying not to rip them apart. There's your other news beat. Josh Blazer yells about crappy indies on stream. But again, like, just because you know how to make a game doesn't mean you know how to make a good game, or more importantly, a marketable game. Like we've said, there is a vast difference between building a video game that you intend to play versus building a game that you can sell and make a living off of. Because that's the dream for everybody who's in this industry. You won't be able to make something that will earn you enough money that you can keep living and doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And per news, yeah, that's an experience I feel like most of us in this business have gone through. Certainly, yeah, no one wants an ideas person because the reason most people get into games is because they have a game they want to make. And if you have a company that has any amount of people in it, that means you have at least that many ideas floating around. So coming in with a high level concept is probably not going to get you anywhere. Coming in and having ideas on how to make these high level concepts get done, that's another thing entirely. And yeah, there's the flood of the market flood of games is just insane. Yeah, Chris. Yeah, school not counting as experience is another thing. Certainly, it's weird along those lines because a company will require a college degree, but say that school experience doesn't count. So, it's one of those weird hypocrisies in all industries. Period. That we just it's just kind of life at this point, and not something that we're going to be able to change until we all own the world, which is not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said, like again, like how many independent developers, don't want to reveal their ideas because they're afraid somebody's going to steal them. But
Oh,
yeah, like everybody has an idea. We all
yeah,
have.
that's a fallacy. We've talked about that before. You go out there and you assume your idea might get stolen. No, it's not gonna. Then even if it were stolen, what's the likelihood? Do you think everyone's gonna be able to make it better than you can? If that's a worry, then you should think about something else because people stealing a game idea is just. I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, you see a game that's successful and you copy it, but it's unlikely someone's going to, just hear someone talking on the street and say, you know what, that's a great game idea. I'm taking it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, news. That's, oh boy, yeah.
Yep. And like we're saying, like going back to his point about the idea guy, and that's another really big problem when it comes to game design, is that game design by itself is just ideas. You can't, if you just go to school to learn about how to make a good game, that's again not the same as building a game. Like I could sit here and have how many hour-long lectures about design and UI, but I couldn't teach someone how to program that. I can't teach someone, how to make physics work in Unity. So it's kind of like if you learn game design, you're only learning kind of like half the equation. Now, again, the beauty about the independent scene is you can find people who can help you with that stuff. Again, everybody's trying to do the same thing. But it is very hard to, again, prove that value of understanding what game design is.
Yeah, and Chris, that is another thing. The hiring, having to put an ad out that you are hiring, in fact, you have someone in mind. And that happens. I can't say that I haven't even been the beneficiary of that.
Yeah.
But like it's very frustrating. I've been the beneficiary and the person who is fighting against that. I've also managed to get jobs just applying via Craigslist. So I've managed to get jobs in every one of those circumstances, and also be denied for jobs in every one of those circumstances, and also just bad interviews. But that's neither here nor there. It is a very difficult business, as there are a lot, but entertainment in particular, it's competitive, it's nasty, it can be nasty, but it can also be very fulfilling. to the point again about ideas, I know that if you're trying to get to a AAA type company or even a tier down below that, the ideas they're looking for are ones that can be proven to make money, not just be a good idea, not just be like a hey, this is a great game that you might you'd want to play. Well, yeah, I'd want to play it, but are 5 million people going to want to play it?
Oh yeah.
We need to be able to spend a ton of money on advertising and make sure that 5 million plus play it. There's the old from even as early as the 90s, making sure that Metascore is high enough, which arguments that can work or not work. It is a failure for a lot of companies.
Yeah.
That's for
And not only that, not only can you have to convince people that that game is worthy, but what about you? Can you make that game? Are you able to take this idea and say, turn out a game in 2 to 3 years? Again, we've seen many people spend 5 to 10 years working on a single game. Yep, there you go. Exactly, Shark. Well, go to EA. Maybe I think that may get you the foot in the door there. Yeah. But like we said, there's so much that goes into making a video game that, like, I guess here's my question. Like, do you think it's impossible for, like, one game design course or program to do it all? Like, it just seems like there's way too many variables to keep track of.
certainly, and this is where I feel like a game design school could really do something, is be a school that's also a company that's basically like, pay us to teach you how to make a game. Then you make a game and you take all the proceeds. A lot of schools that I've heard will actually own the IP you make, and that becomes a problem. Because you spend all this time making a game, you spend all this money getting that education, and then you can't earn money off of that game, when that is like the only thing you can make money off of when you graduate, is having a product in hand, because getting a job is going to be difficult. And yeah, different companies treat their employees with different amounts of respect. That doesn't matter when you're looking for a job in the industry. You're just trying to get the job, and it doesn't. You can't really be as. A lot of people are picky, and I'm not. I can't think that way. I don't value my work like other people can value their own work. So someone like me who's just interested in doing the work, I'm more likely to just go where the work is and just deal with the employer when I get there, and hope to goodness that it's a good company to work for.
Yep.
Sorry, we keep hopping topics all the time. Josh, I'm sure you're getting whiplash just hearing me speak one sentence.
I mean, that could be something interesting. Kind of, it's not a vocational school, but it's like one of those things where you basically work at the school, and then kind of like your finished product or your finished project is actually like a product or something that you can get paid for, right?
Yeah, I think that is an idea that we should go for. Like, seriously, if you're paying a school a lot of money, and then you don't get to own your own product at the end of it, then that seems like it could be a waste. But if we had a school where we taught people and we took the money up front, and then they get to keep any money they earn from that game on the back end, well, certainly that's basically saying, hey, you're kind of gambling. It's a giant slot machine.
Well, isn't that what that could basically describe a lot of college these days?
That's
as well.
true. Actually, the whole educational system, once you up higher education, it's just a crapshoot that you're going to get a job from it.
Oh yeah, and that was another big point. Like, when I got out of college, my former college, they did nothing to help me in terms of finding placement, and that can be equally hard if we're talking about a game design school. Is that school going to be able to go up to like a Nintendo or Blizzard and say, hey, we have a student, hire them? Again, I know DigiPen is basically like with Nintendo at this point. Like, if you go to DigiPen, there's a good chance you're going to get a job at Nintendo like that. But how many other colleges have that level of clout anywhere?
Yeah. And there are companies that will hire at a college, but they'll have one specific college in mind. I remember there was a period of time where I was trying to get into the Imagineering aspect of things, and I feel like I came close, but I couldn't get in.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that they hire young people specifically graduating from a particular college, and I want to say it's Purdue or something like that, but I don't think that's it. But yeah, if you have a dream job and you don't start by going to the right college, that will hurt your chances right off the bat. And that really sucks because not everyone can afford to go to whatever school,
Mm-hmm.
especially one that's competitive to get in anyways.
Yep. And it's just not yet exactly Mojo, unless of course you go the independent route. And again, that's why we've seen this influx of people trying to make their first game or doing that. And again, it's led to like that influx of lower quality games, unfortunately.
And
Because
last week you were on Indie or itch.io,
yeah,
and you found all those games that my assumption was just that it was a high school program that was putting out games so their parents could buy them.
mm-hmm.
Um, and that in itself is just, it's insane to think that that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that it is. I believe that that's happening. I can't prove it. I don't know, but that is just like, think of every high school doing that, or at least 5% of high schools doing that have like some kind of game design little class. That's thousands and thousands of games being released probably at the same time every year towards summer, and that would yeah, trying to be an indie developer and that I can't imagine it. Like, you being an indie developer is about getting a purchasers, customers before you even launch the game. Like, you have to try so hard. I don't know. It just makes me like cringe every time I think about it.
Yeah. And again, it's not easy to do, and it's getting harder with more people trying to do it all at the same time. Yeah, and that's true as well, Shar. I've seen, I think a few of the schools around here have either like STEM programs or they're trying to have a little video game club or a game design club. And again, that is certainly great. The earlier it happens, the better. But it does again raise that issue of, are these actually helping? Like, helping, I would say, in the point that you can actually make a living off of making a video game. Because again, like, anyone can make a game and put on itch.io or even on Steam these days. But if you expect that very simple, that, you spend 3 weeks in a game jam and that's going to be your full game and you're going to live off of that, that's not going to be happening anytime soon.
Yeah, and I will say, in an argument for the high school thing, and even even earlier, is that it's a good team exercise
Mm-hmm.
and it's fun, and it does teach you the benefits of teamwork and structure and all that stuff. So I see that there's a lot of benefits outside of just trying to get a job in that industry. So I think that there's value there. Now, for people trying to make a living in that area, it's insane. And I can imagine in the music industry, it's equally frustrating because these days, everyone has access to professional grade studio everything,
Yep.
equipment, software, just everything. And so you're competing against people who are essentially hobbyists, who are basically releasing stuff for next to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a game developer news, just like you say, you're releasing stuff at a higher quality. And that's true, but because you need to make a living off of it, you're going to have to release it at a relatively high cost. And relatively high can be $10, because you have these hobbyists coming out and pumping out
99
games that,
cents.
yeah, 99 cents, 4.99, instantly on sale. And so competing with that is almost impossible, especially if your game doesn't like entice out of the box,
Yep.
or you don't have that base of customers before you launch. It's impossible. Like, and I don't mean it's impossible, because it is. It's a worthwhile venture. It's something that I feel like people who have that talent and have that passion should absolutely go for. But it is dangerous, and just it is one of those things that it's only getting harder,
Yep.
and that's unfortunate.
And like we've said, like, the cream does rise to the top in a lot of cases, but, and I think this will be my final point. Then I'll throw it to you, Rob. And then we'll go to our weird games. The problem, though, is understanding, I think, why those games succeed. as we've said, with every game design being different, you can't look at a video game and understand why that game worked. Again, like I've looked at Facebook groups and stuff like that where people are like, "Oh yeah, these people they just sold out," or Darkest Dungeon they just made a good game and now they're millionaires. No, like the idea that just make a good game, is your marketing plan to succeed. That doesn't work. And like we're saying, so much about what goes right and even what goes wrong is never really shown or goes over a lot of people's heads. And I think that's the stuff that's very important to teach. Understanding like playtesting. Like how many game design courses, again, we probably don't have this information right here, but I would love to know how many game design courses teach the importance of playtesting, of iterating on an idea. And again, like this is stuff that we talk about, like for us, you and I, and for the chat, it's become second nature for us to have these conversations. But for everybody else, though, it's again it's not fair, and it goes back to the original point for this piece that a lot of people view game design as this, magical beast, the mythical unicorn. You can never understand or tame it. You just make a game and it will hopefully do well. But like we know there are hard elements that go with successful games. It may be more pronounced or lacking in different areas, but we can usually spot trends in the most successful games in terms of what they did, how they managed the project, etc. But if you don't know that, then you're going to keep failing until you either learn that lesson or you run out of money. It's basically that simple.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and I'd say that the core aspects, and I've gone over this before, of trying to make something that can set you up to succeed.
Yep.
Be a part of a group that is passionate about the game type you're making, so that you can get testing, you can get feedback that's honest and from the group that's actually going to be your customer base. That is like a very key aspect. Like I can't emphasize that enough from my days publishing indie games, which I've published ones that were successful and ones that were horrible failures. So I have that little breadth of experience, and it's always important to have that customer base give you feedback from like day one.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have to make sure your game is attractive. Like it has to look good to someone who's essentially a passerby, because Steam is unforgiving to anything that looks like it's shoddy or not polished. Even if it is polished, if it doesn't look polished, you're just going to skip right by it. There's too many things that look nice and shiny.
There's another point. How do you teach someone what makes a game look professional? Like we could show, like there's another class you and I could teach. We could take a bunch of students and just show them like the front page of each IO or the keymailer page. So you see all this? Don't do that. Just
don't do that. But that's your competition.
Yeah, they're going to be. Yeah, don't do anything that you're seeing here. But keep in mind they're going to be taking over. They're going to be trying to steal your market right there.
And that's another lesson to learn. And I'll stop after, because both of us could go on forever and ever about this topic. But one little thing that I just considered is like go to Steam or itch.io and see the game that just got released, like the most very recent game. Then go back in an hour and see where it is on the list, and then go back a day later and see where it is on the list, and then go back a week later and see where it is on the list, and just witness how far gone it is from public view in such a short period of time. And that will just underline the importance of having to have all your ducks in a row before launch, just every single thing. And you have to have that community. Like you have to have people there before launch, or else, and the last game I worked on that was kind of the failure was that community wasn't there. So I was just like, you know what, you got to launch it or don't launch it. You don't have people. So either you get lucky or you don't get lucky. It's over. It's kind of in the hands of the masses now, and if it doesn't take off, then there's nothing you can. So that's just where it was.
That's like another 2 hours of discussions with like all the topics you just mentioned in that last sentence, yeah. Rob. But yeah, like I'm trying to unpack everything here. Like you said, like the Steam list, the store page. That's another harsh reality. You spend 3 to 5 years of your life working on a game, by yourself, or you do no outside coverage. You put up on Steam, and within probably, what do you think, like 3 hours, it could be pushed off that store page and never to be seen again.
Yeah.
So, and when that happens, that's 3 to 5 years of your life gone. Like, that's that. And like you said, like we've said earlier, it is like a lottery or like gambling in that case. And I was just about to say that too, Chris. That a lot of people will say, "Oh, my game didn't sell well because PewDiePie didn't cover it," or I made this amazing game and nobody played it, and it's on them why my game failed. No, that's not how it works. If your game fails, most of the time, unfortunately, it's on you. But the problem, though, is explaining why you failed. Because, like we've said, it's not the things that you do that can hurt you. In many cases, things you don't know that will come back to bite you. How many of those games that failed, like you said, did marketing? How many of them built an effective community? How many of them even have a simple YouTube video showing people what their game is? And again, like getting back to Chris' point, how many of those games were just banking on sending an email to PewDiePie and then checking off on their list? Okay, did marketing for my game. That's all I did was email PewDiePie or Markiplier. And it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and then there's the other side of that is you contact viewers. I'm going to stop. That's a whole other topic. I don't want to get into the whole reviewer thing because that we've talked about that before in some depth, but it would be worth revisiting. It's just that thing unto itself is insane.
Maybe we'll say that for next week. It's good. We're preparing all our topics a week in advance now.
That's good. Well, I'm not here next week.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I can get Josh on because he did a PvP live there.
There you go.
But yeah, like we said, that's another point.
Yeah.
A lot.
That is that thing.
But and this will be I swear, this will be our final point, then we'll move on here. That a lot of people will try and, bank on these Hail Mary plays for their games. And it's great when a game does eventually succeed. Like when we hear these stories that, a year or 2 years after a game came out, suddenly it earned a lot of money and developers doing well. But the problem, though, with that is obvious. What were they doing for those 2 years when they were having no money coming in and no way to pay the bills? And like we're saying, like so many things about game design, and I'm going to say this, I'm not sure I'm going to get in trouble there, but I'm pretty sure a lot of professional game developers don't understand about how game design works. And the reason why I say this is that we've seen many big name people come from major studios to go into the independent scene, and then they still fail, even if they have like a big name title behind them. Like, just because you worked at a major studio and you had somebody to handle the marketing and someone to handle the management, that doesn't mean you can automatically do that. And I hate to say this, but it sounds like what's going on with At the Gates with John Schaefer may fall into that category. Because I've heard nothing about that game after it came out. And again, John Schaefer, he was, I think it was Civ... I always get Civ 4 and Civ 5 confused. I think he was Civilization 5. So, I mean, he has on his resume, he worked at Firaxis and made a Civilization game. And that helped him with his Kickstarter. But, like, talking to him, he had a ton of problems building that game by himself. And like we're saying, like, for us sitting here, we can, armchair quarterback, John Madden style until the cows come home. Like, we've seen this stuff so many times that it's not magical, it's not random, or, the forces, the gods in the sky ruining your game. We can see pretty clearly why these games don't work. But conveying that to somebody, and even more than that, making that into a class or a game design course, is another story.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that was the Tanya Short one. That wait, Tanya Short? Yeah, I think that was that one where I said, no, you, we have to keep talking here. But I think with that, let's move on. And speaking about games that are coming out way too much, let's get to some weird games here and see where things go. Let me switch this back here. Hopefully, it will pull things up. Let's see. 1 second.
Well, here's Fishy Dungeon Delving to kind of kick it off.
All right.
Explore a massive dungeon in style as a land fish. Slide, jump, and swing your way to victory in this goofy physics-based platformer.
Oh, well, that is perfect. The first thing that pops up is a game called Stone, a hip-hop stoner noir. I didn't know you could have a noir around hip-hop and stone, and being stone all day. What the hell?
Yeah, this game, oddly enough, reminds me directly of the game I worked on, Venture Forth, but it's with a fish. And otherwise, it's identical. It's so weird. So weird.
All right, Third thanks for coming on. This will be up after the stream is over if you want to catch the rest of it. What the hell? Wait. Deep, reference-heavy interactive story never told mate. Okay. Oh, this is certainly a great bullet point list for their games, isn't it? Alright. I don't know, this may be a quick win for a weird game, at least on Keymailer. Alright, let's see. What, you found anything else?
Not really. I mean, there's some that look legit. School Owner. Oh, this is interesting. School Owner is a construction and management simulation game where you manage an entire school from preschool to college. That's an interesting school.
Nice.
Going from preschool to college.
What is this?
It looks like oh gosh. I mean, they certainly got an engine. And then I don't know what they did with that engine. Like, there's an engine that they either, if they made it themselves, it's a little surprising, but yeah, the UI is a little iffy.
This looks like somebody combined an RPG with Mavis Beacon teaches typing.
That's pretty good.
There's
not enough of those
yeah.
creative typing programs.
That's actually not a bad idea. Alright.
Crimson Souls, another game that looks like it was made on RPG Maker. Again, not necessarily a bad thing, but you use a lot of competition in that space.
Wolf or Boy? What? A simulation game that you can experience a physiological battle between humans and werewolves.
Well, here's a game, Adventures of Feren-E, the Hobo Knight. A platform-style game where the title and content were decided by you, the Badges? The star is Forsen, a disheveled hobo streamer whose girlfriend and snooze are unexpectedly stolen by a transparent figure. The graphics are a title screen and an option screen. That's it.
Alright, here's one. This looks like it's an RPG Maker game. It really does. The adventures of Golly and his friends who have to travel across the land and meet a lot of enemy and puzzles that will take you on an adventure. Game JRPG with unique graphics. Story. Golly met each other, a young woman who lost her way, and want you to help and meet a new adventurer with the adventures of Golly. Gameplay. RPG game. Hit the monster, keep level, with many puzzles. Oh, okay.
That's pretty good. Here's one. Here's another like helpful hint of not to do in your game is when you put it on Steam or whatever, make sure that the description is not in all caps.
Mm-hmm.
That's a the beginner's mistake.
Yeah. Factory.
This is Rodent Wars Part 1 Hamster Ball Deathmatch.
Ooh.
Looks, it's good concept, I guess. It's just very, it needs some polish. Let's just say that. It's early access, so just that caveat that these games are all supposedly still being worked on.
Mm-hmm. Hey. Huh. So this is one. It's a student project. All right, that's kind of interesting. I hate to be. Here's another one of those. I hate to be that guy, but for any students watching this right now, it's no longer considered groundbreaking or interesting if your story is character falls out of his game and has to explore the real world or explore a computer. That's no longer an innovative idea. Let's see, the ritual, and they have in parentheses indie horror game, so that's good. Oh god, how will they randomly capitalize certain words? Does that work for you, Rob?
That's closer. That's slightly better than all caps.
And also, here's another free marketing tip. We're giving so many free tips today, Rob. We should be charging people for these.
We should be charging it.
But this should not be in your description. What to expect. This is not an AAA game. The graphics is outdated. The story is weak as hell. But if you like retro games packed with monsters and jump scares, this game is definitely for you. You probably shouldn't be saying that your game's graphics are outdated.
Yeah.
And there,
another RPG Maker one, Mistress of Maids, which sounds way worse than it actually looks. Turn-based but fast-paced roguelike game when you do not need to think over each turn and count the HP. If you see the weak, kill him, and if you see a strong man, run away or think how to defeat him and earn experience and money.
what? What the hell am I looking at here? Are you seeing this one, Rob?
That does look interesting. Beraltors.
Oy. I love this description. Your follower's been kidnapped by a big bad dude. Oh no. You want to hug him and feel his warm chest against your skin. You will need to rescue him, but you are a pathetic cretin. And the big guy who stole your father is jacked. Okay. Over 64 different ones. And it says unique hand-drawn style, and they're not kidding. That looks haunting to me. It looks like that game. Remember we did that Indie Spotlight for that was like kind of like an Earthbound style RPG. I can't remember the name of it. Wait.
So here's a card game that uses the rock paper scissors mechanic, literally having graphics that are rock paper and scissors. So not even beating around the bush there. It's just.
I like how this one creature, instead of called a lizard, he's called a lazard.
Well, there's all that IP protection with lizards.
I shouldn't be complaining, though, because I think that's what I would probably have done, too, given how bad I am making up names. Oh, here's the funny part. All these games I'm looking at are coming out in the next 4 days. We're not even like a week old yet on this list.
Here's an interesting one, and I kind of want to give a shout out. Called Differently Fast. It's a VR game where it's competitive wheelchair racing, which is great in a couple aspects. One, it's kind of unique and highlights a type of racing that's not really considered in video games. But also, it uses the fact that VR is really mostly hands.
Yeah.
So it's very clever. Nice. Hopefully, they get some success.
What was it called?
Interesting. Differently Fast.
Let's see. Is it on here?
It looks fun.
Okay. right, not bad.
There's one called Escape Until Friday. So I guess when the weekend hits, you're good. You don't need to escape anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You've been kidnapped by some maniac who holds you in his basement. You have to get out of the kidnapper's at any cost until Friday, when I guess he just releases you.
Mm-hmm. Idle chess story.
And apparently the kidnapper lets you keep your phone.
Oh, that's good. Kind of defeats the purpose of being kidnapped, right? Can I just call for help?
that might be the easy way out.
Somebody's trying to make another take on chess.
Oh, I saw that one. It's like, idle chess or whatever.
Let's see, what's this? Oof.
Toymaker's Apprentice. Now, that name gives you a certain vision as to what the game might be. But the description is a little weird. So the world is dark. The Toymaker's Apprentice has captured our citizens and enslaved us with his evil toys.
Jeez.
So a guy who's just an apprentice to a toy maker somehow enslaves the world. That's very talented. Shouldn't be an apprentice anymore. That's probably why he's just angry about it.
Here's the game, War of Gaia. It looks like very low quality 3D graphics. Like we've said, like 3D is a lot harder to do justice with than 2D.
Yeah.
Look at that grass model. Ugh. Let's see. And Time's getting DLC.
And that's the tough part, is that there's so many engines out there that essentially come with ways to make really high quality textures.
Mm-hmm.
Without much effort.
Puss in Boots, Fear Not, Who Man? Okay. Player, what is this? Player Goes Jump. Oh no.
Alright, so I just came across a game that I think applies to the conversation we had today. It's called Tuition. Again, the name is very misleading, because placed in an abandoned university plagued by the undead, your goal is to escape the building. But the horde of zombies only become increasingly difficult with time. Hurry and find new weapons and tools if you plan on making it out alive.
I thought the story was you're being attacked by a giant student loan and you have to defeat him.
That I would like that game, because are there any games out there on the indie side that are along those lines of Cart Life or is it Papers, Please? I haven't seen many like that recently in our weird games hunt.
Yeah. I mean, the only kind of game like Papers, Please, or at least the kind of slow burn would be something like Return of the Obra Dinn. But even then, that's a different kind of design.
And on top of that, it's very the research that's being done, the thought and care that's going into the core concept of the game is very important.
Mm-hmm. I love this description for the game. Player Goes Jump. I need some beta testers to help develop my game. If testers what you can get your name or alias in the game. Hidden around in the credits are helping test the game. Okay. And then the final description of the marketing plug is, I would like to spend some time thanking my girlfriend Courtney, who without her help and support I wouldn't be able to get this game done. That's a good marketing plug right there.
Yeah, at least for Courtney and her friends. I mean, I understand. That sounds great, but ugh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I got one. Tube-tastic World Splash Fest. This looks like a remake of Tubin.
Oh.
Kind of. Oh no, it's not. It's a party game that shows a bunch of people having fun, but inspired by the classic couch multiplayer games comes Tube-tastic World Splash Fest, 1 to 4 player party game centered around fast-paced versus and co-op action, various characters with unique abilities. Who's your best? Ton of power-ups and wacky pool rules to mix up game modes. Can you master the bouncy chaos?
Okay. Alright, I moved over to Itch to see what is coming out.
Oh, here. No, you weren't. Oh, jeez. Daring.
What is that? Here's another free marketing lesson, folks. Don't do this as your thumbnail for a video game.
Good point.
Wait, is that supposed to be a dog, or is that supposed to be just like an evil face?
Again, that's where I feel like there's grade school level game design stuff happening. They're just launching the games.
Okay, a coin. Oh, good. Greener clicker. That one doesn't look too bad. There's no image here. Oh, not the Sonic.exe again. Oh no. Now that meme is coming. Oh, I just realized now with the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, we're going to get at least probably 30 more of those meme games of Sonic.exe. Are you ready for those, Rob?
I'm ready. Let's bring them on.
Oh my. Well, nothing looks. Ooh. Nothing looks like disturbing yet, at least. What the hell? I don't even know what this screenshot is supposed to be right here. Horse has gone lazy. Oh my.
Yeah, I think I've run the gamut. I did find a text-based roguelike. Well, I guess it's not, or ASCII. It's close. The Red Prison. So, yeah, low level graphics, but there's an audience, I guess.
Yeah, there always is. Let's see. Wait. Lily pad. Okay. Was not expecting it to be a shooter based on this screenshot. Oh, geez. Somebody's using Shrek and Stargate.
So let me guess, they just saw Shrek and or Stargate, and that was their inspiration.
I know they're two different games, but they're right next to each other. Oy. All right.
I'm just watching you scrolling through there.
Do you see the horror on my face here?
Yeah, it looks ugly.
Okay. People are now copying Five Nights at Freddy's. And again, I'm really afraid to click on some of these games, because I'm pretty sure we're going to get flagged for it.
Oh boy.
Alright. Well, I think that's enough of the weird stuff for this week. Alright, so do we have another... Oh yeah, they've been copying that for sure there. And then again, in their strategies then to get covered by like Markiplier or PewDiePie to then earn money like Five Nights at Freddy's. Alright, so do we have another topic, Rob? Is there anything coming to your mind?
Not really. I can't really think of anything. Just a lot of information on what not to do in games, and a lot of depressing information about getting in the games industry today. So I don't want to depress anybody any more than we already have.
I guess for the chat, is there any game design topics you want us to cover? Do we have anything really fast? I'm trying to see if there's anything here. Because we'll talk about reviewers either next week or the week after. And see about Call of Duty from earlier. Apparently, it has sold over 300 million copies in terms of the series. I'm not sure that's exciting or depressing for some people. All these indie game developers going out there, would be better to give them assets to flip. I don't know. I don't know. That may. I don't know. I think that may hurt them in some cases. Again, people looking at them, looking at those games, and saying, "Oh, they're all just using the same thing." What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there are reasons to do that, but yeah, you're pretty much going to get panned by most game players, hardcore game players, who notice that kind of thing. If you make a great game and just use that kind of art, you might be able to get away with it. It's just unlikely you'll be able to get people to buy it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're able to take that and then make something original with it, that's a different story. But we've seen many games on Steam just straight up rip assets from Unity or the Unreal Engine, and then just, that's it. That's all they leave it at. Mm-hmm. Like, we've seen several of those games on Steam. I remember there was that one game that it was just basically like a pair of legs, like walking, like was like a tech demo and doing like basic platforming, and that was it.
Yeah, you'll often see like and assets alone are one thing, but you'll see games that you can tell what engine they used, whether it be Game Maker or RPG Maker for that matter, that come out, and it's just it feels just as lazy that you're using the tutorial, for lack of a better term, of Game Maker to make a shooter. And that is so obvious, and even if you made your own assets, it's just as lazy to just use an engine and use its core things, and that's it, because that comes across as exactly what it is. So I'd say same difference goes with that.
Yeah. And again, like, we see that developers who do manage to, get a successful game out there will have that own unique look to it. And like we said, like, if all you're doing is just taking somebody else's assets, it may work for like the first or second game, but once word gets out that everybody's using like the same, I don't know, armor skin or armor graphic on a character, it runs into that same issue that we saw with many people conflating Unity, being, for broken games, or every shovelware game is made in Unity or stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, to that end, feel free, like, developer art is a thing that is a thing, and it's just temporary art you use to make your game, and that's certainly understandable. But good artists aren't that expensive because there's so many of them.
Yep.
Good artists, good musicians, good programmers. There are so many of them out there that you can use and leverage to make something that's unique. Even if it's something like, well, I bought some assets, can you change them and make them a little more stylized or something like that? You gotta make your game look unique somehow. So if you are using an asset that's there, try and change it, and as News mentioned before, make it your own. Because you don't have to make things from scratch, but you do have to put a spin on it that makes it at least look like you did put some effort into it.
Mm-hmm. And the problem, though, of course, is the amount of effort that you put into it. Because again, like as Shark said, art is often the most expensive part. And yeah, that is true. Like, if you're trying to do a never before seen kind of aesthetic in a game, that's going to get very expensive fast. Even if you are going to keep it 2D. Again, games like, I'm sure it was very challenging to do the art for something like Braid, for instance. But it's often the very first thing that people are going to see. And I think one that we've learned is that a lot of people, what's that expression? They eat with their eyes, I guess, in a matter of speaking here. And unfortunately, like, it's kind of like, again, like that whole catch-22, or putting the cart before the horse. That if your game is good enough, it will get word of mouth and people will buy it. but it still has to look presentable enough and it has to be flashy and attractive to get people to try it in the first place.
Yeah, and there's also the danger is you can get assets and use old assets, but unless they go together, it's just going to be that much more apparent that you just grabbed a bunch of assets. So if they look, they have to be the same and match. Because you can easily get assets that look great unto themselves, but once you put them side by side, they're just kind of gross looking. That's all I can really come up with.
Like with a lot of games that we see where people take like 3D assets that they took and they just kind of like paste them into a game space. And it just looks again like very low quality or shoddy. Or you take a bunch of different assets and just try and make them all work in a game. Like here's a fantasy world, but here's a stop motion robot. And here's like some generic elf character that we pulled from somewhere else.
Yeah, and per news, 2D can be way more expensive, certainly to animate.
Yeah.
The 3D animation tools are so advanced, but with pixel graphics, there's no real engine that can use a skeleton to animate it and it look good. So, yeah.
Yeah. But it is such a very big part. Again, that's kind of more on the work side than the design side for a lot of people, unless you are an artist. That you need to have something show up that is presentable to people. Like I know with the Valley Without Wind 1, they took quite a bit of a ding due to like how I think they used stock images for the various characters and enemies.
That makes sense.
Try to write it off as saying that it's a parallel dimension. So this dimension is like these random robots, and this dimension is like a spider. But the problem is that a lot of people didn't see past it. They just look at this and go, "This game was made for $5. Let's move on to something else."
Yeah, and there were so many other games that were similar to that were probably better. I liked it, but I didn't like it enough to actually play it that in that much depth, because there were other games like Terraria for one, being much more deep and having a more consistent style.
Yeah, but it also goes, I think one of the tricky things about the art side of things is that it goes back to kind of like that challenge of working on a game for many years. Like if you start designing the art of your game, let's say in 2016, and then you release that game 4 or 5 years later, it may have looked groundbreaking or interesting back then, but then you're kind of competing with everybody else who has either evolved or using like current generation hardware engines for their stuff.
Yeah, and that's where stylization comes into play. If you can be stylistic with your art, then you can get away with old technology art. But stylizing something has to be attractive in any regard.
And you need somebody who's a legitimate artist to be able to do that too,
or at least to advise you.
And yeah, and that's one of the things that we've talked about before.
And it's not a bad idea, Chris. You just gotta. I mean, like I brought up a couple times in this episode, and I haven't brought up in years, is Cart Life. They basically did something like that.
What was that game?
Cart Life.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but yeah, like when it comes to getting that strong aesthetic, it is one of the reasons why a lot of 2D games still hold up a lot better, because they spent the time to develop a very striking style. Stuff like Shovel Knight, Odalis, what was it? Curse Castelia, and so on. I know if El Gordo was watching, he would be saying the same thing. Like, there's a reason why a lot of Nintendo's games still look really great, despite being on the GameCube or the Wii. That they don't go for, super realistic graphics. Like, that stylized look, if you can nail it, it just lasts forever. Like, Darkest Dungeon, another great example. You don't need, Unreal Engine 4 for Darkest Dungeon and make that game look beautiful. It just does it all on that style and theme. Speaking about
Yeah,
assets, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that's why Nintendo makes underpowered systems in relation to like the PlayStation and Xbox, is because they know
Hmm.
that their style is going to win out
Oh yeah,
over the hyper realism of the PlayStation and Xbox.
yeah. Like Breath of the Wild looks gorgeous, and that is nowhere near the same level, I guess, of engine or technical display as something like Just Cause 3 or Saints Row or so on. What was I about to say? Darkest Dungeon. Oh, now I remember. If you didn't see the news, remember that Metroidvania game from the guy who did Symphony of the Night? What was it? Not Curse. Bloodstain. What was it? They were just talking about this on one of the places I visited. Now I can't remember the name of it. Let's see. Maybe it's on Steam. Oh, here it is. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. We
Yeah,
play the Metroidvania one, or the 2D. So they just released a new trailer for the game featuring an update or to their entire graphics engine. And it looks pretty much night and day. And I think they may have just changed like the lighting and the shadows in a few spots, but like that kind of stuff really does add that impact to the game. Yeah. And that's true as well, Shark. That it's great if you're only making a game on Nintendo, but Nintendo has always been lacking when it comes to the third party side. Like, do
yeah,
you want to play, the game on the Switch, or do you want to play it on like Xbox One or PS4?
yeah. And being able to speak to that is the studio I work for. We make the Switch version of NBA 2K, whatever,
Hmm.
and that really is. It's like trying to pack an ocean into a shot glass.
Hmm.
It is not an easy task.
Yep. But I'm trying to think if there is anything else about assets. Hmm. Talk about 2D. Like, I guess one thing that would be very interesting, I guess I want to get your thoughts on this too, Rob, about this idea of kind of going purposely with like very basic graphics as a form of style. Like what we saw with that game Dusk, that is all Quake One engine style graphics, or that game Butcher. Like when you're like going for like something like that's so, I don't want to say low quality because I know they spent a lot of time getting it, but when it looks like something from like 15, 20 years ago, that kind of graphics, do you think that has a sense of style to it, or do you think people just look at that and say this is like a cheap looking game?
Well, I mean, you remember that was a struggle we had with Venture Forth.
Yeah.
It was stylized to do that, and that's a difficult thing to pull off because games from 2D graphic games and pixel art really is embraced, but old school Doom engine graphics, well, not even Doom, I'd say a little bit more advanced than Doom. Uh, that's not. People don't really harken back to those times because I play Alone in the Dark,
Hmm.
an Alone in the Dark playthrough, and I'm like, oh god, this looks terrible.
Oh yes, we did that on stream, or I did like a record of that a while ago.
Yeah, so it to kind of play with someone's harkening back to the good old days of gaming, retro and whatnot. Um, that isn't seem to be embraced, and that was again something we struggle with Venture Forth, is because I still stand behind that game, but at the same time I look at the graphics and I'm like, well, it's difficult. It's difficult to sell these, but
Hmm.
that's lessons learned.
All right, here's my final question for everyone, and then we'll wrap it up. Do you think FMVs still hold up? Like the FMV style games like Sewer Shark, Seventh Guess, even something like Bad Mojo that we played. Not to be confused with Mojo and Chat there.
personally, I think they can. Like I would go back and play 11th Hour or 7th Mist even. Um, what is it? There's a Zork game that did that too in that same time. Um, Now there have been modern games that do that too,
Yeah.
and
Tex Murphy had a reboot a few years ago.
Roundabout did that,
Oh
and that was all
yes.
very tongue in cheek. And then there was that Her Story.
Yep.
There's games that have used that very well and just very deftly. But I remember back then it was even painful at that. Yeah, Return to Zork. Thank you, Chris. It was very painful back even in those days. People were unsure of that mishmash. But I don't mind it. I could go back and I'd be fine playing it. It just is. It's kind of weird. It's two styles that just don't go well together. But I don't mind it so much. But I wouldn't recommend anyone do it unless they really had a concept that required it.
Should we make an FMV style game, Rob?
I think so. Did you ever watch Community? Did you ever watch Community?
Yeah.
There was I think it was one of the last season,
Yeah.
maybe the last season. They played that old VHS game.
Yeah, that's what we should do.
Yeah.
But I guess the final point then, when it comes to assets, is that you have to do something with them. No matter what your game is or what your scope is, if your game looks like it's cheap in the asset department, it's going to throw off a lot of people. And unfortunately, it's something that can ruin a lot of games. And sadly, it has kind of become the qualifier that we've noticed for a lot of these very low quality titles as well.
Yeah, and it is. It's one of those things that people will dismiss your game
Yep.
without even watching the video, without even reading the description. They'll just bypass it. And it's especially insulting if you see an awesome looking thumbnail and then you look at the gameplay graphics and they don't match. Like that's just a bad taste in your mouth. So yeah, make sure your art is cohesive, has a style, is something unique. And it doesn't have to be like the most unique thing in the world, but it just has to, embrace itself and represent the game.
It needs to stand out, I think, in just some way. Just so that it doesn't like the other 30, 50 games coming out on Steam that day.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It's all about that. It's about standing out and in a good way.
Or you name your game, this is a game about Josh, and that at least gets me to look at the page at least one time.
Very niche market.
The Josh market, there we go. This is where the Josh boxes come in, I guess.
Yeah.
Alright, but I think we're going to wrap it up here for this week. I'll be back tonight for some regular game footage. So, Rob, we won't be seeing you next week, but hopefully we'll have you on for the week after that.
Sounds good.
Alright. Everybody for tuning in live or recorded, thank you so much. Be sure to check out our Discord channel, link down below. I'm still thinking about offering the Josh boxes. If there are interest, I need to set up like a formal way of doing that. But be sure to come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. I'll be back next Sunday around 3:30 EDT for our next live show. Well, other than that, have a great rest of the Sunday afternoon, and I'll see you all later.